Welcome everybody to another episode of Fly the Wing. Today's lesson, the level turn. So, what is a level turn? A level turn is obviously a level performed by maintaining a constant altitude. There are four main objectives in order to achieve this, and as we have configured our aircraft towards our exercise pace, straight and level flight, power configuration for cruising speed, let me explain to you one by one. First of all, we need to maintain a constant altitude throughout the turn. That means no gaining or losing any altitude. Secondly, we need not exceed a maximum bank angle of 30 degrees. Thirdly, be coordinated throughout the whole turn. That is, no any skidding or slipping into the turn. And finally, to be able to roll out at a selected heading. So, the banking of the main wing causes the lift generated by it to tilt. This provides a horizontal turning force, which is known as centripetal force. The greater the bank angle, the greater the force which turns the aircraft. However, notice that as the aircraft is turning, I'm losing altitude. This is because the turning of the main wing, the tilting, reduces the vertical component of the lift, which will result in the altitude loss unless we, as a pilot, input some back pressure on the control column in order to increase the angle of attack and hence the lift generated by the wings. How much we will apply is a matter of experience, which is gained by exercising of the maneuver. Applying the correct amount of back pressure on the control column as the airplane is banked increases the angle of attack and thus the total lift. However, notice how the airspeed is also degrading during the maneuver. This is due to the increased induced drag. The lift is increased by increasing the angle of attack. However, this also results in increased induced drag. As a consequence of this increased drag, the airplane will tend to slow down. At normal flight speeds, this small airspeed loss, which is caused by the induced drag, is acceptable. We estimate the bank angle by judging the angle which is created by the cone of the aircraft and the horizon. This is referred to as the bank altitude, and it can be verified by use of the attitude indicator in the cockpit, the turn coordinator, and sometimes we may be consulted of our direction indicator, magnetic compass, and the altimeter and the VSI, the vertical speed indicator, in order to ensure that we maintain a constant altitude throughout the turn. The pitch attitude, what that is, how much pitch should I induce into the aircraft in order to maintain altitude, is something which is gained through experience, how to estimate the correct pitch. And it requires, in this kind of aircraft category, usually what we do as a rule of thumb is we try to keep the compass, that you see here, more or less above the horizon. This shall give us a proper pitch altitude in order to maintain the altitude throughout the turn. Another factor that we need to consider in order to successfully perform a level turn is to be balanced throughout the turn, to be coordinated. In order to do that, we need to tackle the secondary effect of ailerons. What is that? When the pilot banks the airplane using the ailerons, the lift is tilted because the main wing is banked. The natural stability of the aircraft, let me show right here. So we got a lift vector which is tilted, and the vertical component is maintaining the aircraft in the air, obviously, and the centripetal force is turning the aircraft. Because of the aircraft's empennage and the vertical stabilizer, the slim slip effect, that is the airflow attacks the vertical stabilizer from an angle, and because this is behind the center of gravity of the aircraft, causes a turning moment, which turns the aircraft, the nose of the aircraft, inside the turn. However, there is also an effect of the ailerons, which turns to turn the nose away from the turn. Let me demonstrate. Notice a reference point in the horizon and the compass. Now I will perform a right turn, and you will see how the nose of the aircraft will momentarily point opposite the turn, outside the turn. Watch. Did you see that? Okay. Let me demonstrate on the left turn. You see, there is a tendency of the nose to point the other way. This is called adverse yaw, and is a secondary effect of the aileron. The outer aileron of the turn, as it goes down into the high pressure area under the wing, it not only causes the increased lift to push the wing upwards, it also increases the drag of this wing. So we have a symmetrical induced drag. The induced drag from the upwind wing is higher than the induced drag created by the downwind wing. This causes the adverse yaw that we talked about. In order to counteract that, the pilot uses the rudder. So let's see a slipping turn. You see that the ball is not centered. We apply right rudder and we maintain the ball into the center line. This is how we coordinate our turn. The opposite, which is skid, is when the ball has a tendency to go on the opposite side of the turn. If the ball is out to the left on a right hand turn, we use opposite left rudder in order to center the ball and maintain our coordination. Turning performance increases at lower airspeeds. For the same bank angle, at a lower airspeed, we give a smaller radius of a turn and a greater rate of heading change. For this reason, and for navigational purposes and for purposes of controlling air traffic, it is important to examine the concept of Rate-1 turn, or more commonly also referred to instrument flying as standard rate turn. What is that? A standard rate turn, or Rate-1 turn, is a turn that will give us a change of heading at the rate of 3 degrees per second. That means we will achieve a turn of 180 in 1 minute and a complete cycle 360 degrees in 2 minutes. To achieve a Rate-1 turning performance at different airspeeds, there is a very easy rule of thumb which indicates that we should divide our current airspeed by 10 and add 7. So, currently we are straight and level flying at 100 knots. Divided by 10 gives us 10 plus 7, 17 degrees of bank angle. So, let's, for example, let's say that from our current heading, we need to perform a Rate-1 turn to a new heading of 330. We bank the aircraft at about 17 degrees bank angle. We maintain proper pitch altitude in order to fly at a constant altitude. We check our rudders, we check the coordination of the turn. As you can see also, if we consult the turn coordinator, the wing is aligned with the Rate-1 turn mark, which will give us exactly the 3 degrees per second rate of turn. Now, Watch as the aircraft balloons when we roll out of the turn. The reason is that during the turn, as we said before, we are using a higher angle of attack for maintaining the same altitude. When we level the wings, this higher angle of attack gives us a much greater lift force momentarily, which causes the aircraft to balloon. In order to counteract that, it is important to anticipate this ballooning effect, and when we roll out of the turn, to apply a little bit of forward pressure on the control yoke in order to make sure that the aircraft will not balloon on the rolling out of the turn. So let's try to perform a 180 and see if a standard rate turn will give us the new heading of 030 degrees at exactly 1 minute. So we will use the clock in order to coordinate our turn and count whether this will give us a 180 in 1 minute. So here we go. Notice how I constantly check the horizon. I cross-check that with attitude indicator, the level coordinate, the turn coordinator, and the slip indicator in order to coordinate the flight. And as a secondary consultancy, I check the altimeter and the vertical speed indicator in order to make sure that I'm not losing or gaining any altitude throughout the turn. Start our rollout, and as you can see here, well, that was a perfect example of a standard rate turn. We perform a 180 degree change of heading at exactly 1 minute time. Another concept that we should be visiting at this lesson is that of overbanking. The higher speed of the outer wing in a level turn will create extra lift on that wing. Up to a specific certain bank angle for this aircraft, due to the dynamic and static stability of the aircraft, it will have a tendency to correct its position and return back to level flight. But after a specific bank angle, the aircraft will start overbanking on its own. This is something we should simply be aware and maintain the desired bank angle using the control column as needed. Do not let the aircraft overbank. So at this moment we should recap what we have learned today. So in order to perform a level turn, control bank angle with ailerons, hold altitude with the elevator, note reference points in the horizon, consult your instruments, attitude indicator, turn coordinator, direction indicator, and altimeter and vertical speed indicator for maintaining constant altitude, and make sure that you are flying coordinated by use of the slip indicator. The last thing that I would like to demonstrate is how do we roll out at a specific new heading, and a very handy rule of thumb, which is, let's say for example that we are flying at a heading of 150 and we want to perform a left level turn and roll out exactly at 060 degrees. The rule of thumb is to divide the bank angle that we will use for executing this turn by 2. The number which this will give is the amount of degrees of lead of our leading point at which we should start our rollout of the turn. For example, if I perform this left turn at a bank angle of 20 degrees divided by 2 gives us 10, which means if I want to roll out at 060 degrees, I should start my roll out at 050 degrees. So let's execute that turn and see how it goes. Passing 050 degrees, and we roll out. So that pretty much sums it up. Thank you guys for watching this new episode. If you liked it, please do subscribe or leave any comment, and I'll be sure to reply. Thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you on the 4th episode of the Fly the Wing channel, in which we will be demonstrating the climbing and descending turns. Thank you very much, and fly safe. Bye bye.